Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us for episode 83 of the Australian Book Lovers podcast. Our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, memoir and picture book writer, voracious reader of many genres, and one of your co-founders and hosts, coming to you from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country.
And I am Darren Kesenko, dystopian science fiction and horror author, avid reader, and one of your co-hosts and co-founders of the Australian Book Lovers podcast and website, coming to today from a very balmy and unusually warm, well, it is winter now officially, evening in Ghana country.
There you go.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. It is. We've had over 20 degrees the last couple of days, so I know that's about to change, but very strange. Spring didn't really happen, and then autumn was a little bit odd, and now we're officially winter, and it's shorts and thongs weather.
We are, and we're kind of heading into the winter solstice too, which is, only about, just under 3 weeks away, or even a fortnight away. Yeah.
Let's get the short days.
Let's get the short day done and move.
Start eating chocolates on the calendar towards summer again. But episode 83, Veronica.
Indeed. At 83, here we are. It is hard to believe, but we've made it. Now, we did have our special for episode 82, but I did want people not to miss out on the bingo number for 82 because, we've only got a few left to go. So 82, straight on through.
Oh, well, there we go.
Yeah, very good.
A little poetry in motion, slam poetry.
A little poetry in motion. And, of course, we are in episode 83, which is time for tea.
Oh, there we go. I guess that is definitely what dinner was called when I was a kid, was tea time.
Yeah, time for tea. Yeah, so there we go. Yeah. So, yes, those are our bingo numbers for 82 and 83. Now, you no doubt have some little bits and pieces of news about 1983.
Well, yeah, but first of all, the meaning of the number 83.
Oh, sorry, yes, the meaning of the number first. Yep.
Yeah, I like this meaning. The meaning is that you are about to enter a period of abundance and prosperity, and everything is going to fall into place. Apparently 83 is a cooperative and business orientated number, and the number finds satisfaction in both service to others and material accumulation. The essence of the energy of the number 83 is relationships, or the energy of relationships. So there we go. Here we go. A period of abundance. Now, that doesn't have to mean, of course, monetary stuff. It could be anything. So lots of stuff to make you smile. So let's see if 83 has that meaning for both of us and for our listeners out there. But yes, 1983, because of course we always look back on the year that was in Australia. And look, sometimes, it's really interesting reading what happened in the years. It's, from a writer's perspective, there may even be an odd little news article or trivia point that might trigger a whole story idea or a sudden flashpoint for a novel. And if you were ever going to be inspired to maybe pick up the pen and write a crime or some strange little reflection on Australian society, I think 1983 might be the year for you, because we'll start with something a little bit, not a little bit, it was an absolute tragedy, and it's something I vividly remember as a kid, and that was on the 4th of January, Laurie Bell, who was a little girl aged 10 years old, disappeared from her bedroom in a suburb here in South Australia, which is actually, as I speak, only a couple of kilometres down the road from where I am now. Now, her body, I don't think, has ever been located, but on the 11th of November, all the way further in time, in 2016, a gentleman was finally found guilty of murdering her, and that gentleman was already, I say gentleman very lightly, that person was already serving a life sentence for murdering a boy in 1989 and the abduction and rape of another boy. But I remember that one very well because that little girl was basically taken through her bedroom window, and it was pretty tricky getting to sleep thinking about that. Even I can't remember how old I was exactly. Let's have a look. It would have been 9 or it would have been 10. There you go. So that's a bit spooky too. But anyway, on the 8th of February, a severe dust storm swept through Melbourne and it deposited approximately 1,000 tonnes of topsoil in the city. So that's a lot.
I remember that because I was nursing at the Royal Melbourne at the time, and I remember we were looking at the window and we got the call to say, block up all the windows with towels and things. You could see it coming. It was like that, Armageddon was heading our way, and it was quite spooky.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I've been in one big dust storm out in the desert, but nothing that dropped 1,000 tonnes. No way. Maybe a little bit of stuff flying through the window, but yes. Speaking of apocalyptic Armageddon natural stuff, on the 16th of February, the Ash Wednesday bushfires in both Victoria and South Australia. They claimed the lives of 72 people, destroyed over 2,000 homes, and it was obviously one of Australia's worst ever fires. And definitely vivid memories for me, because people at my school were having to rush away because it was their houses that were in the firing line. So yes,
we weren't in the Macedon Ranges at the time. We came up not long after my brother was here, but a lot of damage and a lot of people very traumatised, by all the fires that happened around the ranges and other places. I know Cockatoo was a place that suffered quite a lot as well. Yeah, God, we've got some pretty sad stories here tonight. Was there anything good in 1983?
Well, can I light it up with a little bit of good old-fashioned Australian political... Well, it's human now, but it's the timing. So on the 23rd of February, Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser claimed that people's savings would be safer under the bed than in the bank. And it exposed him to quite a bit of ridicule. And, of course, Bob Hawke responded, but that's where the commies are. Fast forward about 2 weeks later, the 1983 Australian federal election. Of course, Bob Hawke as leader wins one of the biggest parliamentary majorities in Australian political history. So there we go, a little bit of tit for tat between the two, and one of them came out very much the winner there. On the 1st of May, the Sydney Entertainment Centre was open for the first time. Now, going back to nature though, on the 3rd of May, all of Queensland was declared a disaster area after a fortnight of almost continuous rain broke a drought and flooded 9 river systems. It's a lot of rain, yeah. Now, on the 14th of June, something a little bit interesting, the Royal Australian Navy patrol boat, the HMAS Bendigo, rescued British solo navigator Peter Bird because his boat actually became wrecked about 33 kilometres from, of all the names, Wreck Bay at the northern extreme of Queensland. So if you see that name on the map, maybe paddle left or right. But Bird had crossed 9,000 kilometres of the Pacific Ocean in 294 days in a 10.6 metre rowing boat. So there we go. All of that effort, that monumental achievement. He looked on his map, he saw a point, said Wreck Bay, that's where I'll land. And guess what happened? He got wrecked. But there we go. Now, on a very sombre note, and I'm not trying to jingle between happy and sad, it's just this is in the timeline, but the 18th of July was the actual first death in Australia, which could be attributed to acquired immune deficiency syndrome. So, of course, AIDS, which triggered a new era for Australia. But then flipping to other monumental feats where a person that didn't, guide themselves to a place called Wreck Bay was Mr. Dick Smith, who completed the world's first solo helicopter flight around the globe. So that was pretty cool. Another amazing human feat, on the 2nd of August, Paul Sharp became the first European to cross the Simpson Desert alone and on foot. So that, I reckon that needs a bit of tenacity, to say the least.
Well, see, that's a bit tricky because if you crossed it alone on foot, but surely Indigenous mobs have been crossing it on foot for thousands of years, but maybe not on their own, but I'm sure.
No, that's why they said it was the first European. So maybe
good.
The first person, maybe not the skill set and the knowledge. Yeah.
Because I've been watching, I must admit, we don't watch a lot of free to air, but every now and again we just seem to catch on NITV the songlines, which is often Indigenous storytellers talking about particular songlines that they're happy to share with Europeans, and some of the amazing travels that they then show over the landscape and how just the stories help them navigate and across deserts. That's why that was the segue. Thinking about those, it's just beautiful and just amazing.
Big walks, that's for sure.
Big walks, yes. Yeah.
Well, here's something really strange if you're wanting to dig up a little bit of an old newspaper clipping and maybe inspire a bit of a mystery story. But on the 18th of August, and I don't remember ever hearing about this, a road train was deliberately driven into a motel at Ayers Rock, killing 5 people and injuring further 20.
Oh, goodness.
So I'm not sure much about that story, but to intentionally do that.
Let's have no more sad stories. Give me some happy ones, or I think we'll just draw a line across 1983.
I have got a happy one to finish.
Okay, finish on a happy one then.
And I think anyone who, of age or at least can remember the early 80s, I'm pretty sure in Australia will remember this one for 2 reasons. One, of course, on the 26th of September, Australia 2 wins the America's Cup, which ended the New York Yacht Club's 132-year domination of the race. Now, of course, after Australia's American Cup win, Prime Minister Bob Hawke was on the Today Show on TV, obviously a little bit inebriated, and declared a public holiday for that day, stating that any boss who sacks anyone for not turning up today is a bum.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Now, my husband remembers that because he was in America and they sat up to all hours trying to find a channel to watch it, of course, but the Americans were not very happy.
Oh, funny that the transmission was interrupted, was it?
Well, I think he was in San Francisco. So, yeah, anyway, there you go. All righty. Actually, some good books came out in 1983. I was just, thinking. So, Colour of Magic, Terry Pratchett, one of his, real originals. The Robots of Dawn, Isaac Asimov, of course, Christine and Pet Sematary, the old... Your friend, Mr. King, yeah. So there were some really good stories.
Oddly enough, though, a little trivia tidbit to finish my little flashback to 1983, and that is when it comes to the Miles Franklin Award, there was actually no award for 1983.
How come?
I don't know. I'm going to have to look into it further. That was very... Yeah, whether it was a... Yeah, I don't know. I'm not even going to hazard a guess because I just look like a fool and I'm look like that most of the time during the day. But that's a little bit of a snapshot of Australia 1983 to celebrate, of course, episode 83. Lots of interesting little tidbits in there that who knows, maybe inspiration for further investigation and maybe even a story or two.
Indeed. All right. And now to inspire you to think of your own words, I've got some fabulous words from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows by John Koenig. And given your very special author interview and the very specific perspective narrator, I guess, of the story, I thought that I would give you 2 words that had dogs in them.
Oh, okay.
So, a Fitzcarraldo. This is, according to John, remember these are words that he's made up, a Fitzcarraldo, an image that somehow becomes lodged deep in your brain, maybe washed there by a dream or smuggled inside a book or planted during a casual conversation, which then grows into a wild and impractical vision that keeps scrambling back and forth in your head like a dog stuck in a car that's about to arrive home, just itching for a chance to leap headlong into reality. So there you go, a Fitzcarraldo. And when you talk about prompts, so maybe there is a little image, something that you saw and it's got lodged in your brain, and now it's going to grow into a wild and impractical vision that scrambles back and forth like a dog who's trying to, just arrives home and they want to leap out of the car. Well, this idea wants to leap into reality.
Definitely vivid imagery regarding the dog jumping around a car. Something we can probably all relate to.
Indeed. All right. So here's another one. Deep gut. So as you can imagine, it is an emotion that you haven't felt in years that you might have forgotten about completely if your emotional playlist hadn't been left on shuffle. And it's a feeling whose opening riff tugs on all your other neurons like a dog on a leash waiting for you to open the door.
That's an interesting description, most definitely.
Yeah. And it's like emotion you haven't felt in years. So it could be quite a deep emotion that it's been a goodbye, or it's a grief, or it's a joy, and you might have almost forgotten what it feels like, but your emotional playlist is on shuffle, and then you get a feeling like a dog on a leash waiting for you to open the door. I just love the way he describes words. They're just amazing.
And it's funny that description there, kind of probably not the right way, but made me think of how odd and special and interesting and almost magical and yet completely unique. Oh, I don't know how to describe it, but you know, of all the senses we've got and all the wonderful things we can do with our vision and with our writing, with our ears and all that, a little smell can just trigger like an absolute avalanche of memories.
Absolutely.
Vivid, so strong and vivid. And
Yeah.
from just a quick little whiff of something that from, you know, times gone way back.
Indeed. So we spent the weekend with a friend of mine up on the New South Wales Victorian border. She had a feijoa tree. I don't know if you know feijoas, but I think they're originally a New Zealand fruit. Anyway, my mum and dad had feijoas at our place along the driveway. And when I came home, my son, who'd been with his girlfriend minding the animals, he goes, "Oh, that just reminds me of Granddad's." Now, he was barely 12 months old when my dad died, and so he would only have had, you know, just that really early memory. But he said that just that smell of those particular fruit, and excuse me, if anybody knows feijoas, they do have a fairly unique smell. And when I cut it, he goes, "Oh, yes, I just think of Granddad's. You know, I don't remember a whole lot about it, but that just brings it back." So there you go.
Yeah, with our funny brains, isn't it? Especially considering they come with no instructions.
Yeah.
And broken like mine. But anyway.
Indeed. All right. So that means I did have two backup words. So I'm going to share one more with you. So ambedo is a kind of melancholic trance in which you become completely absorbed in vivid sensory details. Raindrops skittering down a window, tall trees leaning in the wind, clouds of cream swirling in your coffee, which leads to a dawning awareness of the haunting fragility of life, a mood whose only known cure is the vuvuzela. Now, that's why I didn't tell you, that's why I didn't use that, because I have no idea what a vuvuzela is. Because when I thought, oh yeah, that's really lovely. But apparently a vuvuzela is a horn with an inexpensive injection moulded plastic shell. It's about 65 centimetres long, 2 foot long, and it produces a really loud monotone. So there you go. So it's the one that they use at the soccer, you know, that with the really long, colourful ones. So
vaguely, yeah.
And
I was thinking it was all about
big,
being in the moment, being present in the moment, and being aware of a timeless nature, but also aware of the fragility of nature.
Yeah. So there's sensory details, the haunting fragility of life. So there you go. 3 beautiful words from the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows by John Koenig. Now, I think it's time for news.
Let's jump into some news before we head to the cafe. Absolutely.
Two pieces of news from the Australian Society of Authors, who are doing a good job being our advocates for writers, authors and illustrators. And don't forget, I mentioned the prizes if you join and take out a membership. But anyway, I'm not speaking for them. What I'm talking about is VIP's Forum, Book Talk, graphic novels and book bans. So apparently, each year, the Australia Council for the Arts hosts the Visiting International Publishers, so not very important people as VIP, but the Visiting International Publishers program, where international publishers, agents and scouts are invited to Sydney. Why they wouldn't come to Melbourne, which is the home of literature, I don't know. But anyway, just saying, they get invited to Sydney to meet with Australian publishers and agents. The program is designed to strengthen relationships between the publishers and agents in Australia and abroad, and to share insights into global publishing trends, to expand opportunities for Aussie authors overseas and promote the sale of rights in international markets. Now, delighted to see that one of our authors, I say our authors because she's got her books with us and we've had a chat, Petronella McGovern, is there amongst another 6 or 8 authors there, and she was there as part of the visitors. Now, quick market updates. According to this forum, YA is a stable category and has continued to broaden, including older readers. Global trends in picture books, including work which deals with relevant topics such as mental and emotional health, gender identity, or our engagement with the natural world without being too overt. And while sales have increased in various countries throughout the pandemic, they were mostly directed towards backlist titles. So, people tended to go with what they knew rather than, breaking through with frontlist titles and debut authors is becoming increasingly difficult. Audiobooks, of course, are increasing in popularity, but don't seem to be eating into print sales, so that's a good thing. They go on then, and I won't sort of steal the thunder, please go and have a look on the Australian Society of Authors, which is asauthors.org, and you can read about book talk, you can read about graphic novels and book bans, so have a look at those and see what they are. The other story that I wanted to mention was the Australian Children's Storytelling Parliamentary Friends launch. So that is a mouthful. The inaugural Australian Children's Storytelling Parliamentary Friends event took place at Parliament House last Wednesday on the not last Wednesday, but it depends when we get this out. It took place on Wednesday, the 24th of May. Over 300 MPs, senators, staffers and special guests were in attendance. Now, this was emceed by the delightful children's author Nat Amore, and if you've ever watched any of her little videos, she is just hilarious. But they talked, the Parliamentary Friends Group was established to provide a forum for parliamentarians to meet and interact with industry bodies across books, theatre, screen and music to discuss matters relating to Australian children's storytelling. And what they sort of announced, the chair, who is the Honourable Warren Ench MP, is that we share the view that Australian children are inspired by storytelling that reflects their own culture on screen and in books, theatre and music. And, then Nat Amore goes on to talk about, being a really important to storytelling future, to that Australians, that we need to develop and support Australian IP with legislation that makes sure children see themselves reflected in our books, songs, screen content and stories to build a sense of pride in Australia's unique culture. So, yay, go all of those people who are in the Parliamentary Friends. There you go.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a huge undertaking, doesn't it?
Yeah. So really pleased to see that, and just the stronger focus on arts, all around, by what's happening around the place. And, we had the Australia Reads, and that's a great initiative. Australian Publishers Association, gifted over 350 children's books to attendees. So, yeah, lots to do there. And look, interesting, you're talking about, particularly Australian language. I was writing, doing some drafting of a science fiction book that I'm writing, and I wrote the word spruik, which you know what spruiking is, yeah?
Spruiking, as in, standing at the front. And
I've
done a lot of spruiking in the restaurants on the Surfers
that,
Paradise there.
Yeah, that's an Australian word. It wasn't in the dictionary, because I thought, how do you spell that again? Is it a UI? But no, it's not in the dictionary. It's not a US or UK, which is our usual one to go to. So that is a particularly Australian thing. So I thought, there you go. A colloquial thing is spruiking. Go Australia.
There you go.
All right, so those are my news things. What have you got for us, Darren?
I've got a couple of very quick ones, and now obviously we've popped out that first little introduction to the AI as far as our little mini episodes, and it has been a fascinating topic for me to get my head around. It's happening as we speak. There's movement every second. But I was intrigued by just a couple of quick articles. One was actually from the website thechainsaw.com. And basically the article was chatting about how two of Australia's largest online book retailers, so Booktopia and Readings, are already selling ebooks co-authored or authored entirely by, for example, ChatGPT or PT, which is obviously one of the open AI sort of chat prompts, which you can tell it prompts and ask it to write a story for you. So I found that really interesting, because that means that, because we don't have any rules in place yet, so we're really seeing a Wild West out there. So as far as for the news, I just wanted to read a quick article from artslaw.com.au, and the article is titled "Speak for Yourself, Chat GPT and What Do You Need to Think About as a Creator?" So for example, as an author. And this is basically a very short article on the limits of copyright protection. So The article basically says, in the USA, the Copyright Office granted and then took away copyright protection for a 13-page comic book that artist Chris Castanova generated using an AI because the visual imagery and artworks were not the product of a human artist. However, the Copyright Office did allow Castanova to retain copyright in the arrangement and storyline of the comics. So, what's the story here in Australia? The courts in Australia have not looked at copyright protection for work created by AI yet. At this stage, we don't know if outputs produced by, for example, ChatGPT will be protected by copyright. If you are using ChatGPT in your creative process, this could affect your ability to commercialize your work, because if there's no copyright protection, people can use it without permission. So our existing laws say that a person needs to expend some intellectual or creative effort in a work to obtain copyright protection. At the risk of stating the obvious, ChatGPT is not a person. So it is likely that the courts will look at what you've done with the output to decide if it will be protected by copyright. Have you edited, modified, or reworked the output? Have you built your own algorithm and AI? The more independent effort you have put into creating a work, separate from what the AI has done, the more likely it is that the work will be protected by copyright. However, if you are just prompting ChatGPT with a question and using the exact answer it produces, that answer may not be protected by copyright. So all we can do is wait and see what the courts say. And that's a little mini article from artslaw.com.au, but obviously raises some interesting points. But, you know, at the end of the day, what it shows is it's going to take a lot for law to catch up to something that's already racing away at the speed of light. So very interesting news there, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot of those sorts of articles. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Good news.
But that is my quick little bit of news, because we definitely want to get to the wonderful interview with Danielle. So maybe after the ups and downs and trials and tribulations of looking back at 1983 and you know, a little bit of news, let's sip a coffee or two and pop in the cafe, check out some books, check out what you've been reading, and then let's get ready for the interview.
Beautiful. All right, bring on the cafe, because I am a little bit parched. I must admit I have a really cold cup of tea that I've been trying to drink all day in front of me. But let's imagine that I'm going into the cafe and it's not a really cold cup of tea that's overly stewed, but in fact it's maybe even a soy hot chocolate, because that would be just lovely with really chunky bits of chocolate, maybe just Milo on the top. Yeah. Nice. I think that's me. What about you, Darren? What is in your cuppa?
Well, I think, you know, because it's a nice, very balmy, almost subtropical evening, but I know that the change will be here tomorrow night. My virtual cafe is actually the top floor of a high-rise building. I'm looking far into the horizon at sunset, and I can see storm clouds coming through. And I've got a nice little glass coffee mug or cup or glass, I don't know what you call it. But and now I forgot the term. I used to have to make them when I did my long distant days at the coffee machine. But they look like Guinness, but they're actually a black coffee with a little bit of cream on top.
Oh, so it's not a macchiato, is it?
No, something different. Similar though,
yeah,
but so that's what I'm sipping.
Yep, fair enough.
Yeah, a little glass. But anyway, a little shot, and as I'm watching the storm roll in. But cafe time, which is all about Reader's Cafe, all about books. What have you been reading?
Well, I'm pleased to say that I am still 6 books ahead of my target. So I've read 59 of my 125 books for 2023. And some of that has been helped because we did do, you know, a 3-hour drive up and 3-hour drive back to Wodonga. There's plenty of reading time in there, because my hubby does like to drive, and I'm very happy to let him drive in these cases. So what I've read is the entire trilogy of The Scholomance by Naomi Novik. Now, it's a Deadly Education, which the kids gave me for Christmas, and I've only just got around to starting it, but it was just fantastic. It's kind of like a Harry Potter but horror. You would probably enjoy it because it's pretty brutal. There's a lot of dying and bits and pieces in it. Brilliant magic system, really quite unusual, lovely diversity, and really enjoyed that. So A Deadly Education. And then The Last Graduate. Then I thought, I really like this, but I can't afford to get all the books, so I borrowed the other two from the Goldfields Library. Thank you very much, Goldfields Library. The Last Graduate, which was book 2, and then The Golden Enclaves, which was book 3, which I finished in this morning, and just after brekkie. So there you go, hot off the press, those 3, which of course this is a fantasy. Now, I also read Terry Pratchett's Guards, and this is, I think, the first book where Sergeant Vimes is involved, and in the typical Terry Pratchett, I'm not sure if you know this, is his Ringworld series, where they, the world is on the back of a turtle held up by 4 elephants or something. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it is his delightful, quirky humour, which is good, and there are dragons in that one, which is lovely. And somebody has recommended that I go back and reread The Witches. I've read one of theirs, which was The Weird Sisters, but there's a few others about Granny. I can't think what her name is, but anyway, so I read Terry Pratchett's. And the other one, which really delighted to say that I got an early copy of, is Far From Harm by Naomi Shippen. Now, yes, Naomi, as you know, was one of our best reviewers, which is brilliant. She was really generous enough to do lots of the audio reviews for us. And then she got a bit busy because she got a publishing deal herself for this domestic noir. Yeah, which is fantastic. And we will have Naomi on in a couple of episodes and talk to her about her journey. So yes, I did read Far From Harm, which was just fantastic. And I won't say much about it because all I say is go and put your name down for a copy when it comes out, and have a listen when Naomi and we talk about it. So it was great, full of possibilities, lovely thriller, twists and turns and all sorts of things. And you could see this woman sort of heading for a car crash in her life, not literally but metaphorically. And yeah, it was great. Loved it. Far From Harm, Naomi Shippen. So there you go. And I did finish, because I think I mentioned that I'd started Red Glove by Holly Black, which is Curse Workers number 2. Probably won't go on to do the rest, because it's, I don't mind YA, and the ones that I talked about, Naomi Novik's, they were YA, and so I think there's probably enough YA for me for a little while. I need to read some older people stuff. So there you go.
That's a lot of reading. Yeah.
That is a lot of reading, but yeah. All right. You must have some new books for us, because I know lots of them have been hopping on to the list to get on the website. What have you got for us, Darren?
Absolutely. So definitely here in the Readers Cafe, want to spotlight a few of the new titles that authors have been so kind enough as to let us list on the Australian Book Lovers website. Bit of a mystery and thriller theme to a lot of these titles, so which is always a good thing. But I'm going to start with a book called O2, which is book 1 in the Dylan Malley series, and this is by author Nic D'alessandro, and you'll find it under our mystery and thriller, and O2 is in the chemical formula. So the description is: Dylan Malloy has retreated from the world, throwing himself into a second choice job in Australia's remote outback. His days as a self-sufficient loner, however, are rapidly ending. Dylan knows he won't make his 25th birthday without life-saving surgery. His one and only chance means a desperate journey to a hospital today, and the last flight to Perth departs in just a few minutes. But the thought of boarding that 737 is as painful as the sinister disease destroying his body from within, and as dark as the underlying truths he fights to keep secret. As he battles his fears about the journey and his operation, Dylan has no clue his many ghosts are about to return in ways he could never imagine. Dylan's life choices and turbulent history will culminate in Flight JW238 in a seat-gripping climax you won't see coming. Will Dylan's next actions decide his fate, or is he destined to die young and alone? So the thrilling drama of O2 will have you questioning how our lives play out. Do we randomly stumble through it all, or is there a predetermined script? And that is O2, book 1 in the Dylan Malley series by author Nic D'alessandro under our mystery and thriller.
There you go.
Oh, you can always ramp that suspense right up by putting it on a plane, can't you?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Now, this one says actually, you talked about Pratchett, and so this one is a little bit of humour. It's under our contemporary. Sounds like it's a little bit of humour and maybe a little bit of witty reflection on dark elements of life too. The book is called The Terrible Event by author David Cohen. So, from the winner of the Russell Prize for Humour Writing, David Cohen's most wryly humorous and disturbing work of fiction yet. A public memorial's name is changed to avoid any mention of the tragedy it has been set up to commemorate. Two attention-seeking activists campaign against exclusionary policies adopted by the gift shop at a suburban shopping mall. A customer service representative becomes obsessed with a colleague who has worked from home for so long, nobody in the company remembers her.
Oh, goodness.
A middle-aged father loses his marriage and falls in love again with a cherished but damaged childhood toy. An academic's research into roadside memorials takes a peculiar turn. David Cohen's sometimes bizarre yet pitch-perfect stories capture everyday horrors but are always shot through with a profound empathy and generosity. The Terrible Event delivers not just one terrible event, but many events of varying degrees of terribleness. Death, destruction, disappearance, decline, defeat. It has something for everyone. And that is The Terrible Event by David Cohen, which you can find under our contemporary. Now the next one will swing back to our mystery and thriller genre, and this is by author Max Jeffries, and it is called Altered Sense. So the loyalties of those closest to him will be tested. When an unprovoked and vicious assault leaves William Denham at a Sydney hospital with serious head injuries, he soon begins to experience strange visions. Forced to question his sanity as the realisation that he's experienced premonitions of violent and horrific crimes yet to occur, those closest to Will are confronted with his newfound abilities, causing fear for his state of mind. As the visions of these brutal crimes continue to plague Will, he must turn to his friends for help to save the lives of the unsuspecting victims. And that is Altered Sense by Max Jeffries under our mystery and thriller. Getting a bit of Dead Zone vibe there. That could be really interesting.
Yes.
And as I mentioned, we're sticking with mystery and thriller, and this one is called Dark Streets, an Australian crime thriller by author Phillip Strang. So a homeless man, Old Joe's death was not unexpected. Not until it was found out to be murder. This was Darlinghurst Road, King's Cross, once a hub of inequity, of strip joints and gentlemen's clubs, of licensed premises and restaurants. But now the area is changing, going upmarket. Another enclave for those that can afford it. Not a place for the homeless, nor is it a place of murder. But then, another murder in Point Piper. Upmarket and exclusive, a woman, her throat cut. Detective Gary Haddock's a seasoned hand in homicide, but he's baffled by the murders. Statistically, Sydney's eastern suburbs rarely has a murder, but after 4, are they serial or random? And if they are, why? Sergeant Natalie Campbell from King's Cross Police Station is wet behind the ears when she pairs with Haddock, but she soon learns that she is more astute than the man, although she's a risk taker. He has to protect her, but she will take the investigations forward. And that is Dark Streets, an Australian crime thriller by Phillip Strang. My lucky last one here in the cafe spotlight on some books, and stick with mystery thriller, is dun dun dun, Far From Home by Naomi Shippen, which you mentioned. So after receiving a substantial inheritance, 37-year-old aspiring writer Teresa moves to the high country of Victoria, Australia, to finally write the novel she had always planned. Here, she meets and marries Rick Goodman, a former TV star and local entrepreneur. More than a decade a senior, Rick is charming and successful and the most lovingly attentive partner Teresa has ever had. He encourages her dreams to write a novel and rekindles her long-forgotten desire to have a child. Life on their idyllic alpine property is bliss, until Rick gets a text message from his ex-wife, Anita, the glamorous daughter of a wealthy TV producer. Rick tells Teresa that Anita has run off overseas with a new boyfriend and that they must care for his teenage daughter, Chloe. While her efforts to bond with her bewildered and resentful stepdaughter fall flat, Teresa is overjoyed when she finds herself pregnant. But as months go by with no word from Anita, Teresa's search for answers leads her to the woman in Rick's past, and she must uncover the truth about their lives in time to save herself and her unborn child. So just when you think it's going one way, it starts to pull at a few threads, and this one's going to dive deep into some mystery, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it was beautifully written. And it's just sort of the I won't spoil it, but there's someone there who's a manipulator, and yes, it's... Wait, read it. I'm not going to give it away, but yes, jump in and have a read.
Yes, absolutely.
It's really good. And it's so lovely to read something and you know the person who's written it. It's like, means a little bit more. There you go.
So shall we step outside of the cafe now that we are finished our coffee? We've had some great looks into some books that you've been reading and obviously some fantastic titles, and talk about our next guest. I'll see you on the outside.
All right, I forgot we're in the cafe, so yeah, I better just scull the last bit of chocolate, which is often the best bit. I have a hot chocolate that lasts a little bit, and I'll see you soon.
And here we are back in the virtual world of the Australian Book Lovers podcast with the cafe somewhere behind me up in a weird, tall, virtual city skyscraper. But, of course, the important part of the episode, the most inspiring part, and that is, for this episode number 83, I had the very unique and awesome pleasure of talking with the most wonderful and caring and revealing and inspiring author, Danielle Corrie. And Danielle was so awesome enough to talk with me about the release of her book Teida's Story, Life Through the Eyes of a Dog. And it was such a, well, as you're all going to hear, it's what, I guess when you hear Teida's Story, Life Through the Eyes of a Dog, you obviously have an idea of what it's going to be, and that is, obviously a narration or a perspective of life seen through the eyes of a dog. But then, as you'll hear from Danielle, the concept and what it reveals and the inspiration behind it, there's so much more to it. And it was an absolute pleasure to just be able to have that beautiful conversation. And Danielle was so generous in what she revealed, and talks about the publishing process, talks about all, obviously, the things behind the formation of the story and what inspired her to pick up the pen and write, because as you'll hear, it may not have necessarily been the direction she thought she would be heading. So yes, so I won't keep blabbing on. I'll just say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for this wonderful interview, and Danielle, thank you, and let us go straight into the conversation right now. So, dear listeners, our next guest describes herself as an author who has always been surrounded by family pets, big and small, from dogs to peach-faced parrots to an aviary of budgerigars and even a goat, duck and a turtle who lived in the family home. Now, friendship, the tragedy of loss and the power of reflection also inspired our guest to basically go on an 8-year writing journey that brought into the world the book Teida's Story, Life Through the Eyes of the Dog. And today I've become a little bit a part of that journey because I have the absolute pleasure of talking with none other than Danielle Corrie. So Danielle, welcome to the Australian Book Lovers podcast.
Thank you very much, Darren. Thank you very much for having me.
No problems at all. I'm very excited to talk to someone who obviously has a huge love for animals and also has a little bit of a different journey as far as the writing. But I guess the first thing I wanted to maybe touch base with you about was I was quite interested to read that at one point you admit English wasn't, or should we say English was far from your strong point during the school years. And yet the passion for writing obviously refused to be ignored, because here you are today, you're a published author. So before we dive into Teida's Story, I was wondering if you could maybe let our listeners know a little bit about Danielle's story, your story, and also maybe a little bit about the changing relationship that you've had with writing.
Way back when I went to school, which was way back in the day, my favourite subject was maths, because I like spelling, I like grammar, I enjoyed reading, but then when it came to writing essays or comprehension and those sort of English, I just couldn't do it. I flunked it, I was weak at it, I was never good enough to pass anything, and I ended up getting when I was in year 5, I had an 87-year-old nun who actually basically was my teacher, and when I got to high school, she decided to offer me tutoring, so I took her up on it, and she tutored me before and after school in comprehension. It helped me a little, but not great. And I used to get like 12 out of 20 in writing essays because I was just too logic. I didn't know how to waffle, as they call it these days, or expand my work to get to the word count. Even at uni or tertiary education, I'd get my sister to expand it out for me because I just couldn't meet the word count. So
well, inserting the fluff is very important sometimes.
So I had to get some help there. But like English was my weakest subject. I'd avoid all essay subjects possible. My favourite subject was maths way back then. I enjoyed writing to pen pals back then. Used to write to people overseas. But you never were critiqued about your writing and how you wrote things. You just wrote.
No, this is true. It's funny because we just had a guest in the Writers' Lounge who's brought in a pen pal initiative, and it got me thinking. I think I remember, but when I was a kid, I'm pretty sure some magazines and even in the newspapers in the sort of back section, they used to have ads for people looking for pen pals. Am I imagining that, or was there once upon a time you could find them?
That's how I found it. There was a little leaflet of pen pals, people wanting to write to other people from other countries, even other parts of Australia or New Zealand, and that's how I came to writing to other people worldwide. And I even met my pen pal when I went to Jamaica. I had a friend in Jamaica. My sister and I had a trip to Jamaica and we met her. So
that must have been pretty interesting.
It was. So it was a bit of because my sister actually had a pen pal in Jamaica, and her name was Faith, and Faith had a friend who wanted to have a pen pal in Australia as well. So I friended her. So we decided at 94, when it was the 94 bushfires, to take a trip to Jamaica and meet them, or meet my friend, because I don't think Sam's friend was still around then, and maybe she was, but we met her and spent a couple of weeks there and then came back via Fiji, and so that was my pen pal experience.
Well,
and the other good thing with
power of words to bring you gifts in life.
The other thing too is that I did German at school, and one of my pen pals was German. She was Austrian, but she wrote more German than Austrian, than English, and I could actually practice a bit of German trying to write to her. It was just very basic because I wasn't as good as German compared to the other students, but at least it gave me a bit of writing experience there.
Absolutely. And is letter writing something you still do much of?
I do. Well, letter writing, I mean, there's a lot of emails now, I guess, in the thing, but I've become involved in Authors' Pen Pals, which is probably one of the guests you've had today as well.
Yes, for Kate Foster.
Kate?
Yes, there you go. Wow, small world already.
So I began to write to one of the schools. I'm waiting for them to reply back, and another school, I'm waiting for them to reply to me. It's in the pipeline.
It's in the pipeline. That's amazing. That's awesome.
So yeah, it's sort of full circle there. But I still write Christmas cards and things like that rather than email. So I still write in that way.
Yes, I think my life's a little bit hollow at the moment. I do miss getting postcards or sending postcards, but I guess that also tells me a bit of a reminder I'm not doing anything worthy of a postcard right now. But
Christmas cards, birthday cards, it's nice to get the handwritten ones every so often rather than, the text or the email.
Yes.
People do.
Yes, I definitely still take the time to fill out a blank card rather than just pick one and put a name on it. So the tutoring sort of helped you, incorporate writing in part of your repertoire. How has your relationship with writing been prior to starting the book? I mean, was it something that you were consciously looking to, eventually write, or was life
I never thought of writing a book. I never even thought of that in a million years, because I just thought, well, I can't write an essay. How in the hell can I write a book? There was a best friend of mine, Gary, who's Georgie in the book. He passed away, and there was this course called Write Your Book in a Weekend, and I just thought, well, yeah, if I can write my book in a weekend, that'd be really good.
I think if anyone could, I can't imagine anyone being able to write a book in a weekend, but now you got me interested.
So I attended the course, and, I just wrote points and, maybe made a chapter up here and a chapter up there and, told my story, not described it, but just told it, and the lady sort of said, well, you've done everything wrong. You need to name your chapters first. You need to describe, not tell, and all this sort of stuff. And so what's the name? I think I might have had the name of my book right, but that's about all, Like,
Oh, dear.
so, it's like, no, everything's wrong. So I went home and started again. And then I thought, well, I saw her a couple of times. And I thought, well, I don't know if I can do this or not, because who do I ask? And I had a dear friend of mine who's does a lot of academic work and he's written a lot of articles and publications, and he decided to look at my work and sort of said, well, you've got potential here, keep writing. And he really critiqued my work and said my tenses need to be, past tense or present tense consistent, because there wasn't any consistency. I repeated myself bits and here and there, so I just kept going. And then, I had no idea about the process of writing a book or anything. And then a friend of mine decided she did self-publishing. And I thought, well, okay, maybe I'll self-publish, because you can sell, people are selling a lot of books self-publishing, and publishing's totally impossible. There's no way I can do that. But then I'm not the salesy type. And when you go into somebody and say, look, I've got this book, do you want to buy it? They'll sort of say, well, I want to keep it. I want to read it first. I thought, well, no, you can't read it first. So,
It's not how it works.
it doesn't work that way, So I thought, I can't do this. It's too hard. So I didn't know what to do. And then I came across someone else that I knew who published a book, and I asked him the contacts of his publisher, and he gave me it. And I contacted them, and that's how Teida Story became a published book.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't a lot of shopping around to publishers.
Well, New Holland had a bit of deliberation, because they publish non-fiction books. And technically 90% of my book is non-fiction, but because it's told through the eyes of my dog Teida, who's a cross-staffy red cattle dog, it's fiction. So they didn't know what to do with it to start with.
Uh-huh.
And then all these directors and other people to make a decision of, do they take the risk or not? And they did. So that's how it got published. But it's a lot of patience and a lot of back and forth emails, what do you think, and things like that. So,
Yeah.
I've learned a lot since that time.
And you said it took, give or take 8 years to sort of get the book.
Yeah, give or take from the
together.
beginning of starting this course to when it was published. I mean, probably, 8 years in the making. Then you've got to decide, do you want it published or self-published? And that takes a bit of time. But, yeah.
How did it feel when it was
not like
finally
every single day.
on the shelf?
Yeah, well, it's not like every single day you sit and look at a book either. You might sort of have a break for a bit and get back to it, because if you sit there and write every day, you miss things. It's like when you're trying to look for something, oh, gee, I've lost something, and you're looking around the house to find it and you can't find it, and all of a sudden it turns up. So you need to give yourself a bit of a break and then go back to writing instead of just writing and writing and writing.
Yes, you got to sprinkle in a little bit of real life sometimes in there, don't you?
I know. Or write something else and come back to it, and it gives you another brainstorm of, maybe I should write this, in a different way or something. So,
well, but by the sounds of it, obviously you describe yourself as always surrounded by pets, big and small, and it goes without saying that your little woofie has played an enormous part in your life. So obviously pets hold a huge place in your heart. But I also understand that you have a strong fascination with the spirit world also. So I'm curious, Danielle, do you think there are special connections to be made with animals? Something almost magical?
well, there is. Teida and I had this magical connection, and she could read me like anything, and I knew her like anything. So animals are very intuitive. They know about us. They pick up on our energy, and I guess a lot of people misinterpret that with sometimes because it's like, oh, this dog doesn't like me, and it's like, but if you stay calm, it'll be calm. If you get anxious, it'll get anxious. And even in the spirit world now, like I sense that Teida's around me because she's passed away now. I sense she's around me a lot, and that sometimes gets you through each day of, sometimes you just have this day of, what do I do here? What do I do there? And then all of a sudden something comes into your head and it's like, oh, okay. thanks. And sometimes you just know it's from someone up there. So I believe that a lot in the spiritual sense.
Yeah,
And,
I agree. I think there's definitely, like you said, they can definitely pick up on our emotions and are definitely very intuitive to our moods, our energies.
like, people thought Teida, I mean, she's a dog, obviously, but she could tell when somebody, like a dog can tell when a female is pregnant, for example. My friend Gary, was the last time when he turned up, she knew it was the last time he'd turn up, and he was basically dying. He was terminal, and she knew that his final visit was his final visit. She also knew because he's diabetic, when his sugar count was down, all this sort of thing. I had a friend who was actually, just over here having a conversation on his phone. He went to go to the laundry because he wanted some private time, and Teida's water bowl was in the laundry, but she didn't go and have a drink until he actually finished the conversation. She sat there and just watched him until he finished the conversation. It's like it's just someone that eavesdrops,
Wants to make sure she's got all the information.
Well, it's like, I think she sort of thought, if he was human, she'd probably tell him, what to do, but she's a dog. So, but I just found it fascinating that she just wouldn't budge until he actually moved, finished his conversation with this person on the other end of the phone.
Tell me a little bit about your Gary, because obviously yourself and Gary, the Teida story is your story and Gary's story.
Gary I met at the State Emergency Service, I'll say SES, but Gary's a volunteer member of the SES, and that's a volunteer organisation that helps in emergency situations or storm and rain and, that sort of thing. That you see these orange people in orange overalls on roofs and helping in floods and that sort of thing. That's the SES. And they're everywhere, so they're not just in New South Wales, but they're all over Australia as well. And Gary was a member of the local SES. My sister was a member, and then I became a member because they needed admin help. So I became a volunteer member, and Gary and I established a friendship. He has a wife and 3 kids, and sort of took me under his wing and just started from there. And Gary helped me get Teida because even though I've had dogs growing up, I never had a dog of my own once I left home, or a pet of my own once I left home. And I was working long hours, morning and night, and I thought, there's no way, as much as I want a dog, there's no way I can get a dog, because I don't think I'd be able to look after a dog with, working so long. And I didn't think it was fair to the dog. But then Teida came along and proved me wrong. So, and Gary helped in that process with Teida. He was sort of semi-retired, he might be retired. And when I was at work, he might have come over to make sure she was okay. I didn't have a car at the time, so if Teida needed to go to the vet, I'd call on Gary and say, look, can you help take Teida to the vet? So little bits like that, and they established a bond as well as I did. So that's how we came along, and I was like part of Gary's family.
So it was a trio inspired by Teida, kind of the rope that binds the knots.
So Gary had time with his family, with his wife and his children and things like that. But when he's in his spare time, I'd come over and hang out with Teida or hang out with me, or I'd help him with the SES. And it was a lovely friendship.
Well, it definitely sounds as though it's a friendship that, one, that obviously was very much treasured, but two, it's celebrated in Teida's story, Life Through the Eyes of a Dog. But I'm just curious, yes, Danielle, from a writer's perspective, obviously you did the how to complete a book in 2-day course, and you got a lot of guidance and help with the writing process. But when it comes to Teida's story, I'm curious, was it a conscious decision from the start that you'd be telling the story through Teida's eyes, or was it something that came a little bit later?
A dog's eyes rather than a human's eyes, because a dog can be more objective. And it was a healing process because Gary passed away, and I wanted to share the bond that we had, Gary, Teida and I, in the hope that it would help someone else in a small way. Because we went through grief and loss and happy and sad times and good and bad times, and just to show that a pet can actually help a human and a human can help a pet, and we can always have a connection with our pet no matter what it is, whether it's a bird, a dog, or anything in between, So That's why I wanted to write, and I wanted to write it through Teida's eyes because I thought Teida is an important part for both of us. So yeah, I just decided to do something different out of the ordinary.
I couldn't imagine it was easy to start with. So what do you think were some of the challenges that came with writing, or telling a story through Teida's eyes? Because I trying to sort of sit here thinking, how would I do it if I was going to write through Bobby's eyes, my cat? But I wouldn't even know where to begin.
You've got a lot of memories you have with the pet. So you have these little memories that you have from when they came into your life. So Bobby's your cat, your dog?
Oh, yeah, he's my cat, but he's about the size of a dog.
Well, cat or dog. But, you have all these memory times or, fun times that you have. You might have a regular routine that you do every day, whether it's feeding in the morning or night time or playing ball or, you've got cats on the scratching post or something. And some things that are funny that you, like Teida was epileptic, for example, and that's something that people probably aren't aware of. That, gee, what do you do with an epileptic dog? But you just wing it and see what happens. But yeah, I just decided to, it just comes because you have a lot. The only difficult part for me was, okay, I'm at work. What does she do when I'm not at home? So that bit's kind of made up, and you're putting a few other characters in there that just makes it a bit more interesting. Because I know that Teida, for example, likes to sit in the garden. She makes her own little pathway in the grass, and I thought, well, okay, she might sniff insects or she might chase birds, or so it's like, what would they do when you're not home? And you can create little scenes like that. Okay, she had, I used to give her a bone, a biscuit bone, and she'd eat it. Okay, well, where would she eat it? On the grass. And there might be bath times, and sometimes you just go into the mind of the animal, your pet, and think, what are they actually thinking? And at times you do know what they're thinking because they wag their tail and they smile and they want to play with you. Or like in Teida's case, she doesn't like to have a bath, so she'll go to the other end of the bath. And it's like, okay, she's frightened. So with your cat, Bobby, you tune into the cat and think, and they'll actually tell you if you're open to it. Gee, Dad, I like this or I don't like that. And it gives you a little starting point, I guess.
Yeah.
Just went from there.
Yeah, it'd be definitely, it might be a little, I don't know, maybe a little writing, little challenge for myself, maybe to just do a little short story, telling it through the eyes of Bobby. That
something short, you start a little scene or something short, okay, could be a 200-word little short story of one, what happens when you take it to Bobby to the vet, or it could be, when you play with Bobby, little scenario there, and then you can expand it further.
Well, he's quite a heavy cat, so I might try and work out what's going through his mind when he jumps on my chest at 2 a.m. and makes me jolt out of my bed as I've just had a weight dropped on me.
Why did he want to do it at 2 a.m? I've woken up from a bad dream maybe or something, and I want, Dad, you wake up because I'm awake.
Yeah, that's basically it. I want to play now. So
yeah.
Now,
yeah.
It's a very without doubt, it's an interesting perspective to write from. So I'm just wondering, when you did write the story and, through that whole process, were there any surprising discoveries that you made about yourself whilst viewing your life from such an interesting perspective?
Well, I didn't think I could write anything, to be honest. So starting from that, just knowing that, and also knowing more about Teida, because I was writing it when Teida was alive, but it got published once she passed away. So I learnt more about Teida, even from her older years of, and there's other things about writing. It's like, do I put this part in or do I leave it out? Or I changed the names of characters in the book, which I think is a safer option with characters, or even for yourself. You can either keep them or change them, but most people know who they are. So once you read it, you know who people are. But the different techniques of writing is what I learnt, and even just the publishing game, or just even the, trying to find an editor to proofread it, I think is a challenging process, because at the end of the day, you've written something, but you want to get it up to a standard that everyone else is going to look at it. The other thing too I learnt is I put the word mum when I first wrote the book, MUM, and that's Australian. And then the publisher says, well, no, you can't have mum, because mum's Australian MOM's American. Someone else might call it mama, so it's best to have it as mother. So everywhere, so I put mother everywhere.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I just thought, okay, so they did that. Now maybe things have changed since, and maybe in my next book I can have the word mum back in. Who knows, but this is what this publisher was advised me. So I guess if I went to another publisher, they might think something else. The other thing too is that the front cover is of a generic dog, not of my dog. My dog's in the back. And they said that so that the reader can imagine the book as their dog, not as your dog when they read the book. So there's different things like that you learn as you go along. And when the publisher needs you to look at they've made some edits as well. So what you write may be not necessarily what the end product is. If you're happy with what they've written, then you change it. But if you're not, you can tell them that as well. But they are here to deadlines, so you've actually got to read it fast and get away from all the changes that they've made or suggested. So there's a lot of learning on that side as well. But,
no doubt.
Yeah, it takes a while. It's like, oh my gosh, you think you've got everything right, and then it changes a lot. So I never thought I could do anything like that. So to just write a book and self-publish it was amazing. But then to get it published, it's like, that's the step further. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's an absolutely astounding achievement. And look, I have no doubt that the book has probably touched a lot of readers out there. And I've seen myself, there's some really great reviews too already out there. So, but I'm wondering, have there been any standout moments where a reader has reached out to you? Have you had any really standout feedback, or someone who's written to you, or an experience they've shared with you because of the reading your book?
Somebody actually wanted me to write a sequel to it, which I'm trying to figure out what that sequel is, because Teida actually died. So I thought, unless I actually write it from heaven, I'm not sure what the sequel would be. So unless it's one before, like Star Wars did, and they go backwards.
maybe.
That sort of thing. So I've written that. I did a live local radio interview, and there was actually someone who phoned in with a review, which I found was kind of really amazing how much they loved the book.
Wow.
Because I wasn't expecting that. The actual interview on the radio actually said, do you have any questions? And let's open the phone lines for any questions. And this lady just decided to call in and rave on how much she enjoyed reading the book. So
that's amazing.
Surprise. That was a total surprise. So, yeah. But anybody who hasn't read the book, please feel free to review it either on Google Reads or Amazon or, Dimix or wherever you've bought the book or wherever you buy books, so other people are aware that it's out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, and I think, as writers, it would be nice to make money through writing, but, I think there's one thing probably better than money, and that's a good review. And by the sounds of it, you've already got quite a few.
Yeah. People don't know about the book unless you tell them, and word of mouth is fine, but that's for your local area. But to get to people out in the world or in other areas, a lot of them use the internet, a lot of them don't. A lot of elderly, the modern day generation use the internet, but a lot of the elderly don't. So I try and cater for both. But if you're on a website like Goodreads or Amazon, or, you look at reviews before you're writing a book, then put it up there. So
now, you mentioned that you're on the radio, and I've had a bit of a peek at your Facebook and your website, and there's photos of you doing book signings in bookshops, and you've got interviews, and so it was a long journey. You said yourself, 8 years sort of for the moment to come when it was finally published. But I'm wondering, was there a particular moment for you that when you realised that Teida's story wasn't just a book, but was actually becoming a huge part of your life? Did it was there a light bulb moment when you realised that this was having a huge effect on your journey forward, or has it sort of just slowly changed your world around you subtly?
I'd say more subtly because COVID got in the way, to be honest. COVID lockdown and COVID. So I know that when I first published it, they took it to the International World Book Fair, which was located in Frankfurt, Germany, but I don't know how it went. So being an author, until you get a statement, unless someone says, oh, can I look at your book? Or, you get all these publicity events and things like that. I have no idea how it's going. And my statements don't really say that I've sold a lot of copies. As an author, you get roughly 10% of the takings. So if a book gets sold for $20, you get $2. But at the same time, if someone returns the book to the bookstore, you lose that $2 on your next statement. It's a bit of a balancing game out there. Yeah, so I've learnt a lot with that. But it's like just trying to get it out there. My highlight moment, as you say, is probably getting to the overseas. Getting it sold overseas, I think, for me is a big moment because I've never sold anything overseas, to be honest. And
look, just to know that's, on the other side of the world, someone's reading your story, I think is just, truly amazing.
Yeah, because, I just find that pretty amazing. And just to get it into, the Dimmicks, the Amazons, the Booktopias, all these bookstores everywhere, I think that's, and even if one person bought it out there and I've helped one person, I'll just, I'm happy with that. It'll be great to keep going and get really, really high, but for someone that's a novice and just, that's how I find it anyway.
Obviously, Teida's story is a reflection on the trio, Teida, yourself and Gary, and, the relationship, the highs, the lows, and obviously the loss. But you've also written for, I understand, the Urban Naturalist and the Association of Anthropology, Gerontology and the Life Course. So I'm curious, Danielle, what sort of writing does that entail, and how did you become involved with the Urban Naturalist and Association of Anthropology?
The Urban Naturalist is a environmental organisation, and they take short stories, 200 words as a maximum.
Mm-hmm.
And they want something of the environment or nature. So it could be, something in your backyard. And I just decided to write one and submitted it to them, and then they get it published on their website. It's not paid work, but it gets you exposure out there.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with the other one. I actually, the anthropology one, I actually discovered on Twitter.
Okay.
That's how I found it. Believe it or not. I find, and the strange thing is people say I don't like Twitter, but with Twitter, that's how I found you guys as well. So it's a lot of...
Well, look, that's Twitter, I think, is an exceptional tool. And
it's underrated in that way because people kind of look at Twitter and think, it's a lot of gossip and you don't get anything off Twitter. But I found a lot of things. I think my book went to Scotland once off Twitter. Somebody made a comment about it going to Scotland. I thought, oh, thanks, because I don't know where my book goes. I don't even know what bookstores sell it. The publisher won't tell me where my book's sold or what bookstores have it. They say it's privacy, so if anyone knows where it is, it's even better for me. So,
well, maybe you should put like a little thing out to Twitter and say if you've got a copy of Teida's story, take a photo and show us what country you're in. Who knows? There may be copies of your book all over the planet.
That'd be nice. So, so that's the sort of thing there. But so I found the other one off a website, off Twitter, and she actually asked for people who would work with the elderly. It was to do with COVID as well, with traditions, and I just decided, well, it was lockdown, and I'm of Lebanese background, and my mum's Catholic and my dad's Orthodox, so we celebrated 2 Easters, and our Easter tradition actually got a bit sort of, we missed out seeing everyone at Easter because of lockdown, and I was just like, well, what do we do now? So it was explaining how COVID affected traditions and Easter traditions like that, and that's how I got there on that one. It was a one-off writing, and I enjoyed doing it. So if there's something, if someone else wants me to help them with some writing venture, let me know.
Well, that kind of leads to my next question, and that is, when it comes to writing, are you currently working on any new projects, or are you toying with any writing ideas?
I'm toying with a second book. I'm in the process of doing a second book, which is totally different to Teida's story. It's matters more closer to the heart than what Teida's story is, so more personal. So I'm working on that right now. And probably, the Urban Field Naturalist is there. They're restructuring their process of trying to get short stories. So once they sort that out. There might be another one out there that I can publish, put out there for them. That's what I'm writing on at the moment anyway, those two.
Ooh, and how far off do you think the new idea is from turning into a
Well, I've written
book?
about 40,000 words, and they want about 70 to 80. So I'm not sure how that is. So I've got to probably, double what I'm doing now.
Well,
in time.
you double it, yeah, but it also means you're more than halfway.
Yeah, exactly. Then once I do that, I'll find an editor, and once I do that, then I know the process going forward regarding finding a publisher. I know the process regarding marketing your book, because you don't rely on the publisher all the time to actually market your book. They'll do their bit, but because I was told initially, don't do a book launch. Like, I was misinformed in a lot of ways with my Teida story, and sometimes it's like starting from scratch a bit. So, which I'm doing now. I've got a Probus talk next month, so that'll promote it more. And with your interview, it'll help it more. So, marketing events like that, I'm always open to. And, if there's other writing projects that I can be involved in, I'm happy to do that as well. So.
Mm-hmm. And that's really what it's all about with the marketing. It's not. I don't think it's something concrete or written in stone. It's always evolving. The playing field.
It's always evolving,
always
but
changing.
what I find is the little people like, say, you or me that write a book get less exposure. Say, it's harder for us to get on the TV or the radio or that type of thing versus someone who's famous. Someone like the Shane Warnes of the world, or Dr. Chris Brown, or all those sort of people. They can get on Channel 9 or Channel 10 or even on the radio and say, look, I've got this book and this is what it's about. But for someone like you or me, it's not as easy to do that.
Well, I think the internet's a great equaliser and levels the playing field a little bit. And the irony is, I don't think, or I guess my guess would be that, as we're rolling through 2023, I'm not sure how many people watch old-fashioned TV anymore. I'm
just using that as a
of course,
thing,
yeah.
Just to get out into the media. Or even you get, when you have a concert, you have the first performer and then you have the main concert. Mm-hmm. I think that needs to be done with other promotions as well, whether it's writing or, other promotions. Promote the little author as, you've got this main author that's got a big book launch. Promote a little author has a similar genre to it, if it's about animals or if it's about music or something else, just so they can get a bit of exposure as well, I think, just to help them along a bit.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah, kind of like the support band, but you'd be a support author.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They can have 90% of the time, and you can have the first 10 minutes, and they can have, first 10%, and they can have the 90%.
Yes, definitely.
A bit of exposure, whether it's the media or whether it's, a TEDx talk or whatever the situation is, that just allows you to be amongst audience and amongst people out in the world.
Well, speaking of audiences, obviously we've got a wonderful audience that listen to the Australian Book Lovers podcast. So a lot of listeners out there, I suspect, would be very interested in getting a copy of Teida's story, Live Through the Eyes of a Dog. Now, for those people that haven't yet discovered the magic of your book, what themes and emotions are waiting for them within the pages when they do get a copy?
Well, there's grief and loss is one, happy and sad times. So there's good and bad times because and Teida learns about faith, hope, and there's friendship and love. Those are the main themes, I say, in the book.
Well, they're definitely big themes too, aren't they? They're not exactly little themes.
Yeah, so there's and it's connecting. I learn as a human what Teida's like. Teida learns what I'm like, and we connect. And it's just our journey going forward, and right up to when Teida passes away.
And you said that the writing the book was also kind of a way to a coping mechanism or sort of processing and understanding. Process. Yeah.
And anybody can write a book. Like, it doesn't have to be a published book, but if someone out there thinks, well, I can't write a book like that, you don't have to write a book like that. For example, you could write a little memory book for your next generation. For example, if you came out from overseas and you want to share going forward, to your grandchildren or to your daughter or son, what it was like on the boats or what it was like, migrating from one country to another, or you have all these recipes that you want to pass on to the next generation. And that's a book in itself that you just want to keep within your family.
Yeah, I think everybody, if you take a moment and ponder, we all have a story to tell. And, I think there's nothing more exciting than, if you've never written before, but to dip your toes in the water and try and write something.
And if you need a helping hand, then, I can help someone if they need a little bit of guidance.
And what does the rest of 2023 have in store for you? Do you have any big goal? Obviously, the goal is to get to that 70,000 word count. But are there any other adventures on the horizon of 2023 for Danielle Corrie?
Just to get out there and get to know people. I work as a child educator, and I work with children actually. So there's a lot of careers that's changing paths right now for me right now, and even just to outside of that, I like my garden, so I like to do that as well. But I also, when you say spiritual world, I do Reiki, and I was on a program on TV about spiritual and psychic things as well. So there's all these different areas that you can, I don't know, whatever it installs for me, really, I'll take it.
So you're open to whatever pathways the universe lays out for you.
That's it.
And so you were on, I did read that, you were on the ABC show. Was it Psychics in the Neighbourhood or something?
Yeah, Psychics in the Suburbs.
In the suburbs.
Psychics in the Suburbs. It was an ABC documentary about whether psychics are real or not. I was at a downer at that time because the strange thing was a friend of mine, I won't say strange, but a friend of mine who does a lot of mediumship readings needed someone, asked if I wanted to be part of this show that was going around about psychics. And this lady had been interviewed or filming for like 3 years, and I came in the last 6 months of it, and all of a sudden I'm one of the main characters in this document. I didn't think I was doing anything because I thought my mum died, Gay not long passed away, Teida's dying, and I'm hobbling around in a moon boot, and the last thing I wanted to do. And so I was pretty dark, I guess, at that time watching it, because I mean, you know me now, and if you watch it and think, oh gee, I feel sorry for this person. And you learn a lot about TV too, because someone will look at you and think, oh gee, why did you do that, or why did you do this, or why did you give this psychic this money, or they get misinterpretations of what it was like. But you do what actually you get told, basically. So you go there and say, can you go to this show, and you give them this money, and this is what happens. And Florence is a lovely lady, and she's gone to heights after that show, and in her mediumship world, and she's gone to really good levels there. And yet you see the downer of me, and then you see the heights of me, which is now. So it's
there could be a story in that too.
Well, there could be, right?
That's right.
But people don't know the circumstances behind it, and when somebody interviews you and wants certain parts of you, for example, you have to say what they say, and they might give you like at one episode, I'll give you an example. I was holding my head in one part, and the lady said, can I put this in? And I said, yes, but can you actually tell them I've got a migraine because I'm holding my head? But they didn't. So I'm holding my head watching a platform reading, and people probably think, what's going on? And I'm crying, and people probably thought, what you crying for? And I thought, well, Teida just died. I've got a migraine. And but that wasn't, the viewers don't get that.
No, they're not given the context.
No, they just look at this person holding their head and think, what's going on? And why is she crying? It's like, yeah. Did she not get a reading and that's why she's crying? It's like, no, I'm just crying because I just want to get home.
Yes, the smoke and mirror of reality TV, yes.
Yeah. But it was a great experience. So, I'd do it again if someone wanted something like that, an opportune moment. So whatever opportunities come is whatever I take.
Well, you never know who's listening. You never know what opportunities might be coming your way.
and even with you, even with you and Bobby, if you wanted to write something or do something with Bobby, have a go.
Oh, Bobby definitely plays a part in the series I'm working on at the moment, but writing from his perspective, that I haven't done yet. So I'll definitely think of a cool little short story to do with that. But speaking of stories, where can people find out, buy the book, or more importantly, find out more about Danielle Corrie? You've got your website. Are you on social media? What's the best place for people to learn more about you?
Everything. I'm on Facebook. It's Danielle Corrie, author, writer, and storyteller. I've got my website. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. You can buy my book either through New Holland Publishers directly, or on the website there's places like Booktopia or even Amazon, or those places that can buy it. But even your local bookstore, if they don't have it, I'm sure they can order it in for you. And if not, let me know and we'll figure out a way to get it to you.
That's it. If not, come knocking on your door. I need my book, Danielle. I need my book.
New Holland Publishers is a publisher that actually has it there. So if you need copies and nobody else has it, knock on their door and say, pin off some more, will you?
Yes, yeah. Well, hopefully we've got reason to make them, listeners out there, go grab a copy of the book, put those publishers to work and have them suddenly sweating bullets because they've run out and there's a whole crowd out there wanting more.
That's right.
Now, Danielle, thank you so much for being a part of the Australian Book Lovers podcast, and thank you for telling us about your writing journey and about the wonderful relationship you had with Gary and obviously with Teida and all the ins and outs of the process of writing Teida's story live through the eyes of a dog. And just wanted to say I hope that this is not the end of the journey, but the start of a million more journeys. And as you mentioned, you're open to anything the universe can send through. So I hope there's a lot of magic and treasures to be found yet.
Thank you so much, Darren, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of your podcast of Australian Book Lovers.
Absolute pleasure. The pleasure's been mine, 100%. And thank you so much. And now I will be laying there at 2 a.m. when Bobby jumps on my chest, and that I'll be starting to work out the plot points for the story through Bobby's eyes. I was
awake at some ungodly hour. The ideas came at some ungodly hours for me, so who knows?
Well, sometimes that's where the best ideas come, is in those weird hours when you're standing there with a blank stare. Yeah, or getting a glass of water in the dark, and suddenly you're staring at the light pole through the window, and a bolt of inspiration comes, and there goes sleep for the night.
That's right.
But I'm wishing you all the best on your literary journey and all the best on life's journey. And thank you so much. And I would hope that sometime soon you can join us in the Writers' Lounge so we can catch up and find out what's been happening with Teida's story.
I'd like that. Thank you so much, Darren.
So thank you, Danielle Corrie, for a really interesting and lovely chat with Darren. And as always, our writers are so generous. So what were your highlights? What were the things that most stuck in your mind about your chat with Danielle?
Yeah, I think, that whole idea of the perspective from the dog, and which is odd, but it's something that really did sort of echo and sit with me long after the conversation, and something that sort of percolated in the background, because obviously when you're writing, or when I'm writing, when most writers write, there's more than one character in general within a story. So at some point we're kind of shifting that camera angle, and with that shift in camera angle, then we also sometimes have that shift in looking at a situation or an emotion or an event or a person. There's always that slight different perspective depending on which character you're looking through. And of course that's one of the joyous things about writing. But then to think about looking at it from an animal's perspective was I just thought it was something that is on the surface seems pretty obvious, but then the more you think about it, the more incredible that whole concept becomes, and really made me realise that by doing something like that, it is such a cool opportunity to have a look at, for example, if I was trying to imagine what Bobby saw of my life and did it, really meditated on it, it would give me such a different insight into elements of my day. And, you know, those moments where I was super frustrated or angry or whatever it might be, it might be give me a completely different perspective. And yeah, so it's one thing to look through human eyes, but yeah, through an animal's eyes, it's a real different.
Having 2 dogs and 2 cats, a cat my every step, particularly the dogs, they follow me around like Brown's cows, and Gibbs in particular, my daughter's dog. No, neither of these are mine, but my daughter's dog. If you laugh too loud, or if you happen to be sad or whatever, he's over like a flash and worried about what you're doing. So, apart from the fact that they always want food, dogs and cats, and, if you don't dish that up on time, our domesticated animals in particular do have a particular affinity for us, don't they? It's interesting that writers can use such different perspectives to get their message across, or even to explore their own life, and the use of an animal or a third person point of view, or a fictional character, or metaphor, or a different world, as we do in speculative fiction. And it's still often just the tapestry that you can paint your story, or pick your story apart, or see where the real threads lie. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I think I sort of, for me, like I sort of mentioned, on the surface it seems like a pretty obvious one, but then the deeper I thought about it, and this may be obvious for some people, but for me it kind of, you're always writing through the eyes of different characters, but then I thought, what about if I apply those principles and try and observe myself from outside, from different perspectives, maybe on a philosophical, platform, and realise that, wow, then there's whole elements of my personality, my behaviours, good and definitely bad, that I can look at in completely different ways. Now, it's not something I've done often, as far as like really had a good look or imagined, we can often imagine how our actions impact upon other people, but do we ever really try and look at our own actions or behaviours or personality traits completely objectively, in the sense of disconnected from ourselves, and really picture ourselves, that whole concept of if you stepped in a room and at a party and you came across yourself, would you have a drink with that person, or would you slowly slink away?
Well, see, perhaps you haven't quite got to some of the reflective processes, all those why are we here kind of periods in your life, and you may well have had some, but I think that, and particularly with some friends, we've kind of got to this stage together, and you kind of go away for a weekend and you dissect your life and your character and all of those kind of things, and when you've been around the block a few times and you see yourself respond either the same way over and over again to particular triggers, or you're trying to change the way you respond and just can't quite. So yeah, I've done a little bit of that kind of stuff, but it is interesting. Would I speak to myself if I found myself at a party? Well, probably not, because I'm not a great party person. I'm a bit of an introvert, and so the chances are I'd be just skulking around the edges talking to somebody that I knew, not myself.
Yes, I don't know. I'm not going to think right now what I do. I bumped into myself all the time.
I think that's a really interesting thing. I'm going to suggest that prompt for send that one to Kevin Clare, and so that's a good Oz prompt. If you meet yourself at a party. Okay, I like it. All right.
Maybe my writing prompt will be bumped into myself at a party, and then the second day just happened to be one of the greatest Australian bank robberies of all time.
I thought you were going to say one of the greatest Australian authors of all time. Where did bank robbers come from?
Well, no, you need time to write. I need to rob a bank now, and and hit an island. And
we didn't win Tats Lotto, so no, sadly not.
And very quickly, one of the other really important things that I got from the interview with Danielle, and that is, that writing may not have been the direction she found, didn't expect to find herself in at the start, and she did, and it's been just an amazing journey. And so, again, it's such a beautiful source of inspiration, especially for people dipping their toes or wondering if they want to write, or whether they, are made to be writers, or however whatever feelings might be causing trepidation or pausing or just hesitation. Just go for it. As you probably heard in that wonderful interview for Danielle, the journey was a super super cool one with, had its ups and downs, but it was something that she'd never not do again. And, it's made her, a richer person, in spirit and in heart. And what an amazing journey. So, thank you so much,
absolutely.
Danielle. So now is probably normally the time we talk about stepping in the Writer's Lounge. But for this episode 83, we actually don't have a Writer's Lounge because, we wanted to just take a moment for people that may not have listened to episode 82, which is a new little, here and there going to be many episodes regarding artificial intelligence and its impact on our creativity process as writers, and on the publishing industry, on the editing industry, on the creativity side. There's going to be so much moving forward. So we're going to be popping up with little AI tidbits just to, I guess, as a way for all of us to come to grips with what's happening, and maybe, obviously for Veronica and I, the opportunity to look into it a little bit and let our listeners, all of you beautiful listeners, know what's happening on the forefront. So, if you haven't had a chance to listen to episode 82, which is literally just us introducing everything, when you finish this
Go back
episode,
and have a listen.
go back, have a listen. And
Indeed.
and if it perks your interest, jump online and start having a play around. There really is a seismic shift happening out there. And, as scary as it is, it's really exciting. We're all on the forefront of this tidal surge of a wave, a science fiction wave. Science fiction is washing us into reality, and
We love
it's
science
like
fiction.
a wave. We don't know what's going to happen to the wave. We just got to jump up on the board and go for it. We might be a wipeout. Who knows? There's going to be sort of people getting flung everywhere, but it's going to be interesting.
Skynet might be taking over very soon, but watch this space. We will try and bring you a little bit of information each episode. Now, if, of course, you want to see all of our episodes, don't forget that the website is australianbooklovers.com. And for authors, you can jump on and for free have your book uploaded, and you might get a spotlight. Oh, most likely we try and spotlight everybody who jumps on. And if you're a reader and you're looking for a way to support Australian authors, scroll through the pages. We have all the genres, and we have hundreds of Australian authored books. And then if you want to get some of our giveaways, so I've got some free books heading their way in the post as we speak, jump on and subscribe to our newsletter. It's not a really frequent one, so you're always going to get a really good story when you get it. And you'll find that also we're on social media. On Twitter, we're at Australian Books. And on Instagram, we're at Australian Book Lovers. We are on YouTube in case you want to listen to us there, and LinkedIn, and all good podcasting platforms. Now, before we go, we need a quote, Darren. And I've got one about perspectives.
Oh, interesting. Do tell me.
Okay, so this is from Anais Nin, who, I quite like some of her quotes. And, of course, her full name is Angela Anais Waana Angelina Rosa Edelmira Nin Il Kul Mel. So that is a significant name. But anyway, as many of you who will have heard of Anais Nin, she was a French-born American diarist, essayist, novelist, and writer of short stories and erotica, born to Cuban parents in France. So beautiful combination. Now, the quote is, "We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are." That kind of fits all the things we've been chatting about, doesn't it?
It does in a way, absolutely. Yeah.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. Yeah.
Definitely can't avoid that connection we have, and the emotional connection, I guess, even. Yeah,
our own filters, our own experiences,
that's
our
right.
own decisions, the way we see, hear, sense the world. Yeah, okay. So what is your quote?
Well, interestingly enough, mine's about perspective as well, and it's a short one, but one of those ones that belongs on a coffee cup, on a t-shirt, or on loop in your mind, just to be able to get any time you need to, make the day a little bit better. So, the quote is from author Betty Smith, and it is: "Look at everything as though you are seeing it either for the first or last time. Then your time on earth will be filled with glory." And I think that's see it for the first time or the last time, and there's not much that isn't absolutely astounding and magical.
That's, I quite like that. Particularly for the last time, I know that I have this thing where if somebody's leaving, I have to go and see them out to the car, and I have to see them drive off down the street, even if it's dark and they can't see me. It's just a thing. But yes, as though I was seeing them for the last time. That's a little bit morbid, I know, but that's just one of the things that I do. Very good.
Well, it's like down here on the beach, everyone's just like kicking and shooing away the seagulls. And I was thinking, yeah, but if there was only a handful of seagulls left, you'd be calling them the most spectacularly beautiful birds.
Yes. Mine. I do like seagulls.
Yeah, I like them, but they puzzle me. I don't know where they hang out. I mean, obviously they hang out on the beach, but where do they go after? Well, like, do you know what I mean? They come flying in exhausted from out in the sea. It's like, where were you? What were you doing, mate? And then if they can't get chips, they disappear again. And I think
and
they're
chips
like butterflies in the rain.
Seagulls. Yes. Bird, what do they call, ornithologists? So please don't feed the seagulls chips. They're not very good. High fat, high salt content.
Veronica, it's 2023. Minimum chips is probably about $18.50. I don't think anyone is feeding chips to seagulls anymore. Not without giving them a bill at the end.
They are very good. All right, so we have endeavoured to keep our blathering on to an absolute minimum, but we do have, of course, more for you. We've got a fabulous tip from the delightful K.M. Allan, another beautiful blog tip coming up. So we have time to sign off now. And considering that excellent quote and the perspectives that we've had from Danielle, let's do our tagline with a really thoughtful sense behind it, a really calm and reflective, and think that if this was the last time we said it, that this would be it. So are you ready?
Yes, I think I am.
All right, Darren. I'd love you to remember to read more Aussie books.
Well, I was in the moment for that one.
You're in the moment.
Yeah. Again, my acting skills are atrocious, so I'm not sure if I projected that sense of profound wonder at the universe.
There's so many good books to
all
read.
All the biology that was leading to the sound coming up through my throat and into the microphone with all the today's technology, and the fact that it might have been the last thing I was saying, but that's what I was thinking.
Excellent. Thank you for that insight into your mind.
Okay,
and thank you everybody for listening. That is all for episode number 83. We will be back with episode number 84 and another fabulous author to chat with. Stay tuned, everybody, and bye for now.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for another Monster episode, number 83. Stay tuned for some great writing tips, some reviews, and we look forward to joining you for the next one. Take care, everybody.
Hello, listeners. We have with us again, we are so lucky to have her as a regular guest, the fabulous K.M. Allan. And as you know, Kate is, in fact, a YA author powered by chocolate and green tea. Not only is she the author of a fabulous series, the Blackbird series, which we're hanging out for book 4, which we've mentioned before, but Kate also delivers regular blogs all about writing and is incredibly helpful to many people in the writing community. And luckily, she gives us a little hint of what she's chatting about on Australian Book Lovers. Hello, Kate.
Hello, Veronica.
That was a really long introduction this week.
It was a very nice one. Thank you.
That's all right. Very good. Okay, Kate, what's on the blog this week?
Well, this week we're talking about reducing a big word count.
Oh, I need to read this one absolutely from woe to go. I am a shocker. Tell us, what is your top tip for reducing a big word count?
Well, I think there's a few things you can cut from. I usually have the opposite problem where I tend to sort of underwrite and I need to sort of beef things up. But with my latest manuscript, I've gone way over and I'm in like 15,000 words over and I still haven't finished writing it. So there's going to be a lot of things I'm going to have to cut in an upcoming draft.
Right.
Sort of put this blog together. So I think everyone can sort of look at their own manuscript as well. And there's quite a few things you can cut. The first tip I would say would look at your events. And if you really cast a critical eye over it, I'm sure there's at least one event you could find in there that could lift right out.
Right. Okay. Or not make another book.
Well, it depends. I'm talking about little events here, just something that's going to cut, maybe 5,000, 6,000 words, just something small that you probably, usually I guess you would have maybe stuck it in there when you were drafting and just sort of seeing where you're going with the story, and it's just sort of stayed in there that whole time, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But sort of, I guess one of those sort of, ultimate kill your darlings sort of test where you just sort of can have a look and go, oh, do I really need this event in here? Does it really do anything? And if it doesn't, take it right out, and that'll cut some words for you right there.
And sorry, Kate, I'm just having a little tickly throat. How do you choose which event? What's the process your mind goes through when you're looking at which one you think, not so necessary?
Well, yeah, that's a good question as well, because sometimes obviously you can be a bit too close to it and you sort of think, well, maybe I can't make that sort of cut. So that's where you've got to get, a good beta reader or someone you trust to sort of read the whole story for you. And then I guess they can sort of let you know which wasn't that interesting to them, you know what I mean? They've got a bit more of that objectivity to sort of say, yeah, you could lose this bit.
Yeah. So are you trying to, and this is in your Blackbird series, are you trying to keep them more or less the same word count so that the rhythm feels the same, or is it that you just feel like you have overwritten in this case?
Oh, and this one, yeah, it's definitely maybe not overwritten, just a lot of things happening that you got to sort of bring in. No, all the books I tried to do, each one is sort of a little bit longer than the last one, but they're sort of short books to start with. I think the first one's only maybe 60,000 words, but they've sort of gotten a little bit bigger as it's gone along, because obviously a lot more happens. But yeah, I'm up to the fourth one now, which will be the last one. So there's a lot you've got to sort of bring together in a last book. And I'm currently, I think, 95,000 words in, which is probably the longest thing I've ever written. And like I said, I still haven't finished. So.
So many things to tie up in the fourth book of a series. Yeah,
definitely. There's a lot of things to tie up. So,
tricky.
There's a lot of things that I sort of had thrown in there that I had written before I started releasing the books. So a lot of it, I guess, isn't relevant anymore. You know what I mean? But it's sort of still in that manuscript because I'd put it in there a couple of years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Now I've got to adjust it all for the books that have come out and been published, because obviously they changed as well just before they were released into the world. So I've got to sort of bring it in line with everything there.
It's interesting how I love to read bricks, huge fantasy and science fiction sagas that are 800 and 900 pages, and that's fantastic. Sometimes I do find myself going, oh, I'll skip that bit of description. Yeah, I know where they're going. But even a lot of the times when the writing is good, you find yourself reading it and don't feel like, say, that's overwritten, whereas sometimes you do read a shorter book and go, oh, they could have tightened this up. So what is that the reader, as the reader, you feel like it's just there's too much fluff around it or too much exposition or...
Yeah, so that's some of the other tips that are in this blog post. Like the next one would be sort of the boring bits, like what you said, just bits where you just sort of, your eyes glaze over as you're sort of reading it. And, you can certainly cut things from there. Over-explaining. Right. I find I do that a lot with, I guess, my character movements. Like I always have to say, if someone gets up and moves across the room, I explain every little step and every little arm movement, all that sort of stuff. And that's the sort of things you really got to cut out.
Yeah.
Editing. Yeah. But sometimes you need that stuff in there to so you know what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah. So you can go, okay, they've walked across the room, they're now near the door. You could just say they left, but sometimes it's I find that too. I think I remember in a very early review of one of my stories, they said, well, we can't see what the person's doing. So then I started to overplace things so that you can see everything that they were doing, scratching their left eyebrow twice. Good. All right. So for more fabulous tips on how to overcome overwriting, jump onto Kate's website, which is kmallan.com, and you can read the entire blog, which I shall be reading this afternoon, and taking copious notes. Copious, sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but yes, copious notes on how to cut down my massive manuscript at the moment. Lovely. Thanks very much, Kate, for joining us again on ABL.
Thank you, Veronica.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Boss from Hell by Laurie Bell. This is brilliant, quirky and action-packed. It is the most delightfully woven, ordinary to extraordinary tale I've read in ages. You're busily snickering at Mig's turn of bad luck, laughing at her oh-so-mundane travels on Melbourne's suburban rail network, her flat tyre and getting drenched in a winter's deluge. Then before you know it, clues, events and Mig herself have taken a decidedly dark turn, and you are deep in the... spoilers, people. Sharp, quirky, supernatural story with a dash of romance. And those grandmothers, they are a menace. Love them to bits. Again, no spoilers. Go and read it for yourself. This is a brilliant, funny and action-packed read.
Let's meet again. Where magic happens.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.